thank you for joining us today on the show. We've got somebody very excited to speak with. He's wrestled everywhere. And when I say everywhere, he's wrestled WCW, WWE, TNA, ECW. Today we're joined by Vito. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, how's everybody doing out there? It's the BIGV from the LOG coming to you live, baby, live. And we're coming right to England, one of my favorite places to wrestle, except in the winter. It gets a little bit cold, but there's always a pint to be had.
There's always a pint to be had.
Always a pint.
That's so true. Yeah, always a pint to be had, man. Apart from at the moment, all the pubs are closed. So... we can't drink our pints just yet, but the pub's open again in April. So
excellent.
We'll be having a pint then to celebrate. You mentioned, let's just talk about it straight away, man. You mentioned you've wrestled in the UK quite a bit. Yes. And I'm hoping they were fond experiences. Can you take us through that, man? Where did you wrestle and what was that like for you?
When WCW came to England back in 99, 2000, I think it was in Manchester, and then the WWE went to Manchester. I wrestled Benoit. And then I wrestled for a gentleman by the name of Brian Dixon. Mm. And I have to tell you, I had a great time in England. I loved all the people, very nice. And I can't say enough great things about it, especially the travel there. It wasn't like, you got to get on a train, get on a bus, learn to walk, so everything was okay out there. So it was a good time.
That's good to hear, man. And Brian Dixon, legendary UK promoter, runs All Star Wrestling, which has been running for many years in the UK, very well known. A lot of people I speak to have Brian Dixon stories because he's quite the character. Can you confirm that?
He is one of the old school promoters who believes in action, action, action.
Okay? There we go. Yeah.
And the biggest night I think we had, one of the best nights was, Vito, I'm going to take you for something special. I said, what's that? Because I'm going to take you to my fish and chips place. Now, fish and chips is pretty big in England, boy.
Yeah.
And so we went to the fish and chips. The fish was the size of the plate. The chips were great. It was greasy. It was fattening, but I tell you what, it was damn good.
Oh, you enjoyed it?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. I had fish and chips in America when I came over. I think it was Long John Silver's or something.
Long John Silver's, not the same.
I thought it was the same, but, I was hoping it would be.
But you want to know the fascinating thing is, guys, that if you ever go to Disney World here in Orlando, right, and you go to England, they have fish and chips.
Oh, in Epcot?
Yes.
Yes, I went to Epcot. I went to the pub in Epcot, but I didn't see the fish and chips. I will definitely look for that next time.
But the fish and chips tasted just like back home, guys. So if you ever go to Disney and you go to Epcot, make sure you go to get some home cooking in England.
Man, you've blown my mind there. That's the last place I'd expect to find proper British fish and chips, Disney World.
Dopey, you want to know something? Like when you go to Epcot and they say drink around the world, and they go in, but you also eat around the world. Mm. So they have all the delicacies of around the world, from Italy to Germany to England to France. So that it's a little bit of taste for everybody. They have Mexico. I mean, it's a wonderful place to go if you're coming from abroad and you're going to come into Disney World, and you can visit every country and get your delight. So it's pretty awesome.
It was one of the coolest places I went to, man. Is that somewhere you visit quite often then? Do you go to Epcot quite a bit?
My wife and I are Disney pass holders. My wife is a Disney fanatic. She loves Disney. I actually had the privilege of working for Disney, so it was a pretty awesome experience. A lot of people came through. A lot of people were happy to meet me. And hey, man, I just like being around people. I like having a good time. I like smiling. So it's an awesome thing.
This is what I love about speaking to people. I know we could speak about wrestling all the time, but you find interesting stories and things you didn't expect. Like you working for Disney, I'd have never guessed that. So what did you do with Disney?
I worked in security for Disney. I was probably the
Nice.
most famous security guard ever,
Yeah.
right? So between them coming in and you're protecting the magic and you're having a great time, and they're saying, "This is the best day of my life," and then they look at me and I go, "Oh my God, it's Big Vito. Oh, my this is awesome. I can't believe it. Do you?" Sure, come on over, take a picture, you give them the pose. The
Yeah.
managers loved it. They would introduce me. They would get a kick out of it. So I used to have special details. And it was, you get to be a people person. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
So when people see you there and you get to have a good time, and it's an awesome feeling. You're having the time of your life. You're meeting one of your heroes in Disney, along with Mickey and Minnie and Goofy, and then you meet Big Vito. So I don't know if it's Goofy Big Vito or Vito Big Goofy, but we ranked 1, 2, so it was good.
Hey, does this mean that Vito is technically a Disney character? Are you? Is that what you're saying?
My original plan was to be Goofy. That's what I wanted to be, and like
Nice.
I tried my damnedest to get into it, get in
Oh
there,
man,
and
that that would have
yeah,
been awesome.
but they are so particular. It's like, ugh. But guys, if you're going to go to Disney, have the time of your life. It's the greatest place in the world to visit. It's one of the best places to be. If you're coming from abroad, go to Disney. You guys will have the best time of your life.
Uh, Before you started protecting the magic, like you said,
Yes.
and when you first started training, like yeah, I know wrestling and Disney are two completely different. Well, maybe not actually. Maybe they've got more in common than you think. But when you first started training, I believe it was Johnny Rodz that you trained with.
Yes, sir. Johnny
Yeah,
Rodz in Gleason's Gym in Brooklyn, New York.
amazing. Like Johnny Rodz is a name that's come up a couple of times during our interviews. We've always heard good things. What was it like for yourself learning from Johnny Rodz?
Well, he was one of the all-time best. He was a legit shooter, trainer. He was the real deal.
Mm,
So when you got to train in the ring with him one on one, it's not like today where they just shoo you off for the students or um, the guys who actually did it don't get in the ring with you today. You know what I
mm,
mean?
yeah,
So it's more or less I got in the ring with the guy who trained me and wrestled him on independent shows. So it was a pretty great thing. And the great thing about um, England and Germany, they work 1, 2. So people out there remember a gentleman by the name of Otto Wanz. He had a very
yeah.
famous wrestling company in Germany. So trying to get into that, in the 90s was tough. And then a gentleman I met years later, a gentleman by the name of Tony St. Clair, another very famous wrestler. But people forget that Dave Taylor, Steve Regal, Dave Finlay,
Yeah,
all come from there.
that's
So, and you learn the carnival life, and it's like Memphis, Tennessee. The psychology is all the same. So
very,
it's pretty
very old
awesome.
school. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
very, very.
I think that's in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong, I love the current products nowadays, but I feel like we could use a little bit of that old school, in today's product as well.
You want to know something? If they had that psychology today instead of everybody jumping around,
Yeah,
I think it would be more enjoyable. If like if I get back in the ring, I'm gonna be me. I'm not gonna try to be you know, these very gifted athletes who can do more,
mm,
but they lose the real in their athleticism because they want to do so much.
yeah,
You know what I
that
mean? So,
that makes sense. I often do feel like that sometimes. Like I said, as much as I love the athleticism, it sometimes seems like they're just trying to get a reaction out of the fan for that 1 second rather than making something memorable.
when a fit Finley hits you, you sell. You
Yeah,
sell.
I,
When Dave Taylor gets in, a Steven Regal, another tough customer. All these guys are legit. You know, like in England, you have a lot of great wrestlers from the carnivals, and I can't tell you like the history that England and Germany have,
Mm.
all the great wrestlers. And it's something because when you are from America, there are different styles everywhere. Like, we mentioned Brian Dixon, action, action, action,
Mm.
right? Then we mentioned Germany with the Schützenplatz, where you go in Hanover and you have an Ironman tournament. You go
Yeah.
to Ireland, and that's a circuit. You go from England to Germany to Ireland. You go in all three places, and like I said, you learn to travel. You learn great customs. You learn the um, England and Ireland have a rivalry. So
Yeah.
you just walk in and you're like, okay, what's the deal? Man, they don't like each other.
No.
No,
No, they don't.
they're your rugby teams and football is very important to you, and it's very competitive. So you learn which team is good and which team is the shits.
Yeah.
The Beatles, from
Yeah.
Liverpool. If you go over to Liverpool and you learn some of the nostalgia where they came from, another awesome thing.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We're very competitive when it comes to our sports and stuff. Wrestling's no exception as well. We're very, competitive when it comes to even if you find a match with an Irish wrestler and a British wrestler, there'll still be some competition there. It
Of
exists
course.
everywhere in our culture. But you mentioned these tough guys, like this is an old school mentality and you were trained in that old school mentality. Did that help you when you first went to ECW? I imagine that would have been something that helped you there.
Well, what people don't realize is in my rookie year, I was doing WWF TVs,
Right.
right? So from WWF in my first year, my second year, I already went to Japan. I was in Puerto Rico. My fourth year, I was in Santo Domingo. Uh, my fifth year, I was in Memphis, Tennessee. These were territories, right?
Mhm.
So I went along and I learned the whole way through. I went back to Puerto Rico. I lived there for 3 years. I went back to Japan. I went to Malaysia. And this is in the beginning of my career where guys don't have those aspirations. Everybody wants to go to a wrestling school and they think you're going to the WWE or NXT, and
Mhm.
there's a pecking order.
Yeah.
But those gentlemen I mentioned all did those territories, and in the territories, that's where you made a living, and that's how you kept up.
Yeah. That's something that I didn't realize as well. Like the territories, it to me, I guess a relatively new fan. I started watching in 2000, so that's still quite a modern fan. I didn't realize these territories were a thing until maybe 2010, 10 years after watching, I looked back at the history of it and saw these territories. How important do you think that was to the up and coming wrestlers back then? Because it's a non existent thing now. You've got the independents, but that's not really the same as the territories, I don't think.
You're not learning your craft on the job, and when you're on the job, and when you like for all the English people out there, when you have do the job and have a job, that's what we call the wrestling business, the
Yeah.
job. So when you learn as you're going and you're performing in front of a live crowd, you can't learn that in a wrestling school. And
Mm.
that's where I think the business is missing, because when you go to England has an NXT, we have an NXT here in America.
Yeah.
These training facilities where these wrestlers are blessed to be paid to train instead of the other way around where we had to work to get paid.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah, sure. That is a big difference, isn't it? It's almost like you said, you now you're paid to train, whereas you before you train to be paid.
Right.
Like it's the other way around. And like I said, I keep saying that there's some great talents on the scene right now, incredible talents. But I often wonder how different it would be if that territory system still like
Do
existed.
you do you realize that when you're wrestling this whole when I was there my first day, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan,
Mm,
Ultimate Warrior, Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, The Rockers, Big Boss Man, Davey Boy Smith, blah blah blah, Owen Hart. You're talking like the stars,
yeah,
the guys who paved the way, the guys who were these big men, and these are the guys you learn from. Today, like when you look at the wrestlers today, and this is nothing against any wrestlers up and coming, but it's young men instead of men's men.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
If you guys get it, it's men with men bodies. It wasn't the pretty boy cut up bodybuilder look that it is today.
Yeah.
Bodybuilders was superstar Billy Graham, the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Tony Atlas. Today, everybody has the same look. They look beautiful. They look like
Yeah.
Adonises. They look, but there's no mix and match. There was an English wrestler who is Paige's father
Oh, Ricky Knight.
and the mother.
Soraya Knight.
Okay. They were two unique wrestlers in the business.
Hmm.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, um, the father is quite large,
Yeah. He's
different
a
character, different way
yeah.
of wrestling, old school wrestling. So when Paige grew up, she grew up in the business, learning from her mother and father and on the job. So
Yeah.
where she already had a head start. But when you come to America, you throw everything out the door. You have an idea, but you have to do it our way. And
I
that's the
get
way
you.
it is, guys, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, they look great nowadays, but when I look back at wrestling from like the 70s, the 80s, everyone in the ring looked like they could beat you up. Like if you was a fan watching,
Yep.
everybody in that ring looked like they would beat you up in a fight. Whereas nowadays, don't get me wrong, they'd still beat me up, but it looks like everyone back in the day was like a real wrestler, if that makes sense. Like
You
there was a
can't tell
toughness about them.
you can't tell the difference as much.
Yeah,
It's politely speaking to everyone out there. So I know there's a lot of wrestlers in England, and I catch some of the stuff, every now and then. And it's hard because, like, if you look like the average guy in the street, even though you're doing the job,
yeah.
it's hard to tell the difference. But when you used to walk through an airport, that's Big Vito. This is this one. That's that one. You knew you just stood out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like when I first started watching wrestling in 2000, um, I believe you came in. I think when I first saw you, it was a couple of years later when you was the FBI,
Right.
and I remember very clearly. I used to watch on Sky Plus or Sky One. Me and my
Sky
mum,
One.
Sky One, yeah. Me and my mum used to watch SmackDown on a Saturday morning, and when we saw the FBI, we hated you guys, like absolutely hated you guys. But your character was so good, and that's you had me and my mum shouting at the TV, and I loved the FBI. And as I got older, I was like, they were such a good faction. Loved the theme music and everything. For you, I mean, playing the character of the FBI, what was that like for you? Did you enjoy that?
I was being myself because that's how I grew up. And it's easy to be yourself. So it wasn't acting. So everything that I was doing was just being me. So that's where the Mamalukes came from
Mm,
WCW. Wow, this guy's, but that was Vito. That was him. And originally, like, I was Skull Von Crush, right? Doing
yeah.
a German character. But then once they said, hey, Vito, why don't you just be Vito the Skull Lagrasso? You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
kept that persona, but I was a Vito Lagrasso now. And then I went to Big Vito and then Vito. So I got to be myself. So,
I, I always love that about you guys as a faction. Yeah, you look like those tough guys, like I said, who could beat you up. And the little things you did, the heel mannerisms and everything, really like my mum. Like I said, she would shout at the TV. Like my mum's a big wrestling fan, but she bought into it. She loved it. So she's actually going to be quite happy that I've spoken to you today. Um,
well,
you
Mom,
know,
thank you very much for hating me. I appreciate it. You know, but what I would like to say to her is thank you very much because I made her enjoy and
yeah.
believe in everything I did. There was no miscommunication. There was not you suck. He's terrible. Look at that shit. That was like, this son of a bitch.
That's it. We wanted to see you lose,
Yes.
we were tuned in to see you get beaten, and that's the whole point, right? Like
That's it.
you play your character, you make the fans angry. We'll tune in and buy a ticket to see you get your ass kicked. That's the whole point.
Hey, listen, you do. That's what the job is about. And if you there and you're believing in me,
Hmm.
right, then everything is good.
What was it like getting to team with some of those amazing talents like Nunzio? You know, that's someone. Nunzio is one of my favorite cruiserweight wrestlers of all time. I think he's highly underrated. What was it like for you getting to be part of that team?
Well, I know Nunzio from back home. He was in
Mm,
New Jersey. I was in Staten Island, so we kind of came up the same way. And we wrestled together in ECW. And then when I took off for WCW, and then when they had an opening for me in the WWE, he voted, said, Vito, get Vito here. We need him. So when I became part of him, the night we won the Cruiserweight title,
mm.
and Nunzio finally became champion, I was his right-hand man, you know. So it's a great thing because like I had a lot of good wingmen. Johnny the Bull was awesome. The guys from the Baldies were great. Um, Wrestling in TNA with the New York Connection, that was another great faction. You know, and guys, you know, if they give you a chance sometimes, and this is the sad thing in wrestling, when you're going good and you're too over, they pull you back.
It, it's the same old story, isn't it? It's still happening now in a lot
Still
of
happening.
cases.
And you want to know, guys, and with the product you have today, if I'll take a character that everybody loves, and this guy should have been world champion 10 times over. He should be the new millennium, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah,
What they did to him, not the first time, not the second time, not the third time. How many times did they have a chance to make him the Undertaker aura or make him
yeah.
bigger than life?
He's a world-class talent and a main event in any company. It baffles me how he's not the number one in that company right now.
It's and like I said, when you're too elevated and you get too over, they pull you back. There's no reason they should have broke up that Wyatt family. They
No,
should have been a faction like the Horsemen.
agreed.
They
Do
should have
you
added a Sister Abigail
mm, do,
long
do
time ago.
you think there's a reason they do that? Because surely you'd think they'd want people to be over because that's money on the table, surely. Like,
Can't be bigger than The Office.
really, that's crazy way of thinking because you'd think the office would just want money, and if you've got more top guys, you get more money.
When you are that great, like The Rock, Batista, John Cena, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, they have a voice. They don't like the voice. They
Right.
want to keep you grounded.
That's so strange. It's a weird mentality to have as a promoter. You'd think you'd want everyone to be at the top, but they even do it with some guys now who are just coming up from NXT, and they'll be absolutely hot, and they'll treat them well for a couple of weeks, and then they get pushed back onto the back burner.
Who's the kid you guys got right now who's been they compare him to Fit Finley. What's his name?
Oh, in NXT?
Yep, in your England NXT.
Oh, in English NXT.
I
Oh,
believe he
just
has long hair. He just redid his body. He was out with an injury. But there's a
oh,
Dunn,
Dunn, Pete Dunn.
Pete
Yes.
Dunn. Now there's a kid who was up and coming. He had all this hot thing. They brought him up a couple times, and all of a sudden they shoved him back to NXT in England.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. Yeah.
So you're like, okay. And then there have been a couple other guys. Who's the other kid who came? He had the mustache. He had a
Tyler
good look.
Bate. Yeah.
Other guy, right? And you say, look, good look, do everything, and then, but then some guys get into trouble. They make some
Mhm.
stupid mistakes. But guys who come up and they're doing their thing, and then they yank them back. Perfect example: Vito and the Dress,
Yeah.
undefeated streak, going, rising. I had a match with Booker T scheduled. It was announced, everything. I went to the TV station for Channel 11 where we knew I was there at 6:30 in the morning. Come back, I get on the thing and Vince calls me in the office, says, Vito, the network wants The Undertaker to fight Booker T. I was like, what? I said, Vince, I says, I just did the TV. It's like undefeated against undefeated.
Mm.
Somebody didn't want me to have the title. True story.
That's crazy as well, man.
If,
Like I said,
if,
when
if I would have won the title, do you realize how big that would have been?
yeah,
But Booker was having a great run. So King Booker against Vito, and if we would have went to a pay-per-view streak against streak, the dress against the streak, they're like, wow, this is going to be epic. Will Vito pull it out?
yeah,
You say if I pull it out, like, the place would went nuts.
absolutely. I remember that you had a hell of a win streak. It wasn't even just a little win streak, like a couple of weeks.
4 or
It,
5 months.
yeah, exactly. That would have been such a good story, and you wouldn't. It's not even one of those stories where you have to win for it to be good. Like, even if you'd have just put on a hell of a match and took Booker T to his limits, still a great story told. If you'd have won, brilliant story, It was win-win. It baffles me how that wasn't what they went with. Even if it was just for a 1 week payoff, it didn't have to be any longer. That's crazy, man. What was your
Uh,
thoughts on that? How did you take that? Was you pissed off at the time, or did you just think, fuck it,
no,
I'm
no,
okay?
it wasn't. Guys, they give you the job. You
Yeah,
do the job. I respected the business. I lived the gimmick.
yeah,
There's no questions. You do it.
that's admirable, man. I'm sure some people wouldn't take it as well, but like you said, it's the job, and you're paid to do your job, and that's what you did. You did it to the best of your abilities, and
When people talk about Dusty Rhodes, was he a plumber or tried to make fun of him, put him in polka dots? He made it work.
yeah, because I don't think many people could have pulled off not many people could have pulled off the polka dots, right? But I think you did a fantastic job of that streak with the dress, making it work.
Okay.
You were given that, and it's one thing. Like I said, when I speak to my mum, I know for a fact she'll remember the FBI in the dress. But we were always fans of that. I don't like. I've always been wondered what you thought of it. But me as a fan watching, I enjoyed it. Like it
Yeah.
was good TV.
But you want to know the crazy thing about it? Your mom loved me. She won't admit you. And she said, "Look at that Vito. I hate him. Wow, that Vito looks kind of sexy in that dress."
Right?
Right. So I mean,
Right. That's it.
it's always a good thing. It's always a
You
good thing.
pulled off that dress, man. Not many people can, but you did. Yeah,
Thank you.
look, you still somehow look like you wore that dress, but still at the same time kicked ass, and that's a challenge, and you did it. You should be super proud of your time in WWE. And
Thank you. Thank you very
big
much.
fan of yours. You mentioned like NXT and NXT UK. They're great performance centers, and they've got a hell of a like staff with their coaches and stuff. Is that something
Yes.
you'd ever want to do to pass your knowledge down?
I would love to have a job teaching wrestling, and for all the experience I have, one of the very few guys who's been everywhere, done it all. If I had an opportunity to come and do this, I would be more than willing to do it.
Would be I'd like to see that, man. I think you've had experiences in WWE, like you said, where you've been given something and you've made it into something good. You've got different experiences to what other coaches might have. You've been to WWE, WCW, TNA, ECW, wrestled different styles. You've got an old school thing. You've probably got a lot to offer that a lot of people might not realize, and I think that would be great to see.
You know what it is? Um, my producer, my wife, person who runs the controls, right? She does all the promotional stuff and puts up all the clips. She gets, I didn't realize how good Vito was. Vito was good with the best of the best. And it's only now people saying, oh my God, his promos were great. This was good. I wish he would come back. Why can't he do it now? I'd be more than willing to do it, guys. So if the guys in England have a job opening and they have a job, call me up. I'm ready.
I'll hold you to that, man. And if you do get something over here, when you come over, We'll be there. We'll go for a pint.
We'll go for a pint and fish and chips.
And fish and chips and a pint. That
Yes.
sounds like a great day, man. I want you to come over to the UK now. We'll make that happen.
Thank you very much. If you could, talk to the gentleman in charge,
Hmm.
I'd appreciate it. And you have all my
Absolutely.
contacts with my wife. So I know you've been speaking with her. Thank you for being patient. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And thank you so much for coming on today. Before we wrap up, is there anything upcoming that you'd like to promote? Any merchandise or your social medias?
Social media, guys. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/the Big Vito brand. And then if you go to twitch.tv/the Big Vito brand, hit us up there. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're at everything. I'm sure that this young lad will promote all my stuff also. I'm just the
All in the
talent.
description.
Exactly. I'm just the talent. I just look handsome and just wear a dress. So everybody else does the work. So it's always good.
Well, like I said, man, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure to speak with you. And best of luck with everything you're doing, your Twitch and all that. Brilliant. I'll give it a subscribe and a follow. But for now, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.